Hello, everyone. We are back with our next episode of Church Ops 500. Just want to take a quick minute before we jump in to remind everyone that you can view this content on a couple of different platforms. We'd love you to engage, look for those places. We're always thankful when you all share, when you all engage. We have our Facebook page. Get there, ask questions. Love being able to answer, being able to continue to resource folks as we work through church operations, and also inviting you to like and subscribe to our YouTube page. And of course, anywhere you consume this content, we would love a rating. It would be huge for us because it helps to fulfill the mission that we have of getting this information out to as many people as we can to help bring hope to the folks that are stuck somewhere between toilet paper and greeting hands, trying to get the church running as it should be, and let them know they are not alone and that there are voices that would love to speak into and share how they've learned, how they've grown in this process. So whenever I have guests on, I always try my best to make sure that we get a chance to not only hear their stories, but where they are. And we are really blessed today for our podcast because we have some repeat offenders. We've got some folks that have podcast with us before and always bringing great information. And I think today we've gotten to hear kind of their church ops testimony. So if you've missed it, jump back in some of the other episodes and be able to hear kind of how they got to where they are. Since they're a second time visitor, I've given them less time to prepare and given them harder questions just so you can see how they move on the fly. And we'll get to kind of hear their thoughts on our topic today. And then also get to hear some of the wins and some of the things going on in their ministry. So our topic today, before we jump into the people that are here with us, is finding the right team members. Now, that is such a broad topic. We're going to try to cover as much of it as we can, thinking not only in the volunteer world, but also in the paid version of a team member. Whenever you're a part of a nonprofit, especially a part of a church, it can be some very dicey territory to function through, to figure out. And I think we can all say we're in the boat of trying to figure out when and how to engage volunteers. I think the management of a nonprofit volunteer base is harder and more challenging than anything you can do in the corporate world, because the corporate world says, hey, here's your paycheck, show up, get it, don't get it, I've got someone else. The nonprofit church world says, hey, I have to woo and inspire and drive you to greatness, because I promise, even if you're paid, you're not paid worth what you are capable of. Any of us could go to the corporate world and get a job that probably pays us far more. But as I've said often, we're not here for the paycheck. We're here because we love what our ministries are doing. We're here because, man, God has given us a calling. And make no mistake, no matter how operationally locked in this role is, it is still a calling from the Lord to be able to do it well. And that is the thing that brings us back to this place. So looking at team members, all that fun stuff. Quick intro of my guests. Of course, we have Simone back with us. She helps to manage one of our churches in Murfreesboro. And if I haven't said it already, we're part of an Every Nation family. So we have ministries all over the world. And I get two of my Every Nation team members here with me, and we've got Pastor Charles. He's in lovely Orlando. You can see that if you're watching on the video, you can see that lovely blue sky and that t-shirt. We're recording right now in March, and I'm like, I don't want to go outside where I am. He's living in that city, so he's got a bigger smile on his face than the rest of us. But that's our team here today. Man, take a minute for both of you. If you guys could share, man, a big win that you're in right now. I think we always have to take a minute to look at where we're winning, because it often feels like we're losing in a lot of places. So taking a moment to go, man, we're winning. And then definitely, if you get a chance, kind of articulate, share just a little bit of something you guys are currently working on, figuring out.
Simone, I'll defer it to you.
Thank you, Pastor Charles. I'll definitely say a huge win for us in Bethel Murfreesboro is our team is truly coming together. When we first started this podcast, I was only working with an associate pastor and a senior pastor, and now we have an executive pastor, a director of ministries, and so the pieces are falling into place, and we're really being able to just uplift our congregation in a holistic way. So that's a huge win.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. For
So-
us, we're pretty excited. We've got a church plant going in Sweden, and they were able to get a meeting place, and I think they've met 2 or 3 Sundays. So we're excited about that. And they're fairly close to the campus, which is where we want to try to reach. As you know, every nation campus, we try to reach college students. So we're really, really excited about that. In addition, the last 2 months, we've just seen God move in tremendous ways. We've experienced, I think, over 37, 38 salvations and baptisms, and we're only in the second month of the year. So we're just believing this is just the tip of the iceberg. So we're pretty excited about what's going on down here in Florida.
Come on. Amen. I'm excited for both of you. Those are huge shifts. We are also living in some of that joy as well. We are finally getting our hands around our team. We're doing some restructuring here as well, looking at bringing on our next full-time employee in the next few months. For anyone who is not familiar with church metrics, they're a great tool for you to use. One that's often used, and at least for our environment, it's produced through Vanderbloemen. It's a Vanderbloemen report. They often are focused solely on church ministries, and I'll make sure that the link is there. They give you statistics on pay rates. Of course, I'm not endorsing their products and going, hey, you need to pay or purchase. Not what we do, just sharing some resources that have been helpful for us. So it's a great report. They often will release a yearly report on annual salaries for churches based on size, number, location, for many different roles within the church. And they also share church metrics. And one of them is that in order to have a good span of care for your ministry, you should have one full-time employee for every 100 to 120 people. Now, that metric is movable. It's flexible. It's not always the case, depending on the nature of your ministry and where it goes, but that's a good benchmark. So for us, the reason we went, hey, it's probably time to think about that trigger is we are living now in the place. This is one of our success stories. We grew by 100 people last year. So we went from attendance in like the 400 range to now attendance where we're routinely hitting low 400s, well over 500. Hit a high for us at 600 people in the service, 600 people in our 2 services combined. And we went, you know what? Right now we're staffed for what we're doing. We're not staffed for growth. So we've got to be able to take that next step. So it's been huge for us. So definitely feeling that. We are also in the midst of a church plant. We're in year 2 with our Lexington team, actually year 3 with our Lexington team. We've got a church in that area that we planted, seeing great fruit there. They're standing on their own feet. They just finally hit the benchmark of not living in the red. So they're making more than they're spending, which is a huge on that side. And they're seeing great engagement from the campuses they're a part of, testimonies coming from all over the place. So winning. And I think it's so important for us to take a minute and live there.
Yes.
We are winning. We are winning.
We are.
Right. It is happening. Ministry is moving forward. And along with that, some challenges we're right now. What are some of the things that are making it a little uncomfortable?
Yeah, I'm dealing with IT having to, we've basically outgrown our system. As a fairly new church, you have to operate within a budget. And we did that coming in. And as you know, with anything electronics, it seems like the average lifespan is 5 years. And we're at the 7-year mark. So we're in the process of having some upgrades done and, a couple challenges here and there. But God is being faithful and we're getting everything taken care of. But just normal course of business. But I'm kind of in the IT world right now.
Yes. Feel that deeply. Come on.
I know for us, a challenge has come out of a blessing. Just like the both of y'all, our church has just exponentially grown in the last year and a half, and we no longer have any space. And so
That's a good challenge.
Right. It's a good challenge, but it's a hard decision. We have to figure out, do we buy new chairs that are a little bit smaller so more people can fit in the service, or do we turn our youth room into an overflow spot? But if we do that, then where do we put the youth? And so there's just a lot of hard decisions that have to be made by Easter So the clock is ticking, but a good challenge nonetheless.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Come on. I love that. And I think what we are intuitively doing here, I challenge anyone in this world to do when you run across something that could be seen as a problem, seeing it as an opportunity, seeing it as a chance for advancement, because we how we look at it, so our team will look at it. So if we look at it and go, this is a huge problem, we're overwhelmed by it, we don't know what to do, versus, man, here's a good challenge. We're either inspiring our teams to greatness or letting them also be overwhelmed by the challenge. And all of these are good challenges. We don't have these challenges without growth. We don't have these challenges without consistency and sustainability. So we have to be very careful about the things that we complain about, because many of those things are the very things that are evidence of growth for us. We're having to set limits on our rooms with our children's ministry. For the first time ever, we are in a place where we will actually have capacity numbers, where we will have to shut down additional people coming into our children's ministry, because we get to the place room-wise where it's just the room, the size that it is, having 12 3 and 4-year-olds running around in that room is the maximum.
Right.
Can't do anymore. So having to be creative and getting the opportunity to go, well, how do we help families manage that? Create different opportunities for them to engage, creating an overflow space. So Simone, with you guys, and going, how do we help someone see our challenge, but at the same time go, we're still thinking of you and still trying to create space for you to be a part. So I love it. I love it. Constantly grinding, constantly thinking.
Yes.
So to our topic for today, taking those moments, those rabbit trails. If you're ever around us and we get into a moment where we don't have to run off, the side conversations, the rabbit holes we go down, I'm telling you, it's gold. It's nuggets of gold. For today, our topic is really looking at how to function, how to find the right team members. How do we help people identify a good fit for where they are, and how to do that in a way that empowers, that brings simplicity to our ministry and allows us to be more effective. I think often we are the key operators of how do we take something very complicated and make it simple, and make it something our teams can reproduce, make it something that we can tangibly use without a 100-page manual to get there. So, first question out of the box for us: what do you look for in a team member? What are some of the qualities that you look for in a team member, volunteer or paid? Either way, in my opinion, they should be the same.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear thoughts, pushback, all those fun things.
You want me to go?
I'll let you go first.
Okay, I've got a pretty big list because I've been at this a little longer. So,
Come on.
yeah, some of the things that I'm looking at is communication. I want to understand how a person communicates. I want to understand is a person how they learn. Everyone learns differently. Some people like to be managed. Some people like to be mentored. It helps if you know the difference. That's so important. I want to understand, how do they make leadership decisions? I want to understand, are they flexible? I'm trying to understand, how do you handle stress? And someone's stress capacity that helps you decide whether to put them in a certain position. Low key stress is different than high key stress. So those are things that you want to be aware of, especially if it's a paid employee. One of the things that I try to do when I do an interview for a paid employee, I look at behavioral and I look at situational. And I don't look at, my interview style is a little different. I don't look at all of your successes, because all of us have successes. All of us can promote our successes. We're excited. But I really want to know who you are as a person when we talk about difficult time periods, when we talk about struggles. And when I ask those questions, it also helps me to see if you're self-aware of who you are. It
Mm,
helps me to see, are you aware where there's growth opportunities? How do you handle situations? I've been doing HR for a long time, and even myself, I would tell people when I help prep them, the question's going to come up. Tell me some areas of growth opportunities. Most people will have one or two prepared for the interview. But what happens when you get one of those questions in each of the categories that you bring up? You really get to see the person think on their feet, or you just get to really see, is what I'm trying to say.
or not.
Exactly. Everybody's got one or two. Well, I can improve in this area. Mine used to be, well, right? Most managers are like, yes, I got somebody that loves to work. It was prepared.
Just prepared.
But what do you do when those questions are asking all of these different categories,
Mm.
right? So you look at behavioral. I want to know personally about you. And then situational, you give them hypotheticals. And it's not so much as the right or wrong answer, is you want to see if are they critical thinkers. And
Yeah.
so we have to understand there are some jobs as well as some volunteer positions that are going to require a higher level degree of what I call emotional IQ. I love seeing, can you do the job? But you can't teach personal traits. You
Mm,
you can mentor, but I can't instill those in you.
Yeah.
Yes, I want to know, if you're going to be a typist, yes, you have to be able to type. That's fantastic. I can find a lot of typists, but can I find the right person that will fit in on our team,
Mhm.
even as a volunteer? The integrity of your team is the most important thing behind skill sets.
wow.
Some skill sets we can teach. Most skill sets we can teach. When we're talking about within a church capacity, I would say minus praise and worship. Either you can sing or you can't. Either you can play an instrument or you can't,
Yeah.
right? That's got to be a given, right? But a greeter, someone in the parking lot, an administrative volunteer, someone on staff, a media person. Can you fit within that team? You can have the best skill set in the world and create controversy and chaos.
Come
And
on.
one of the things that we have to understand when you're leading in a church, God will not flow where there's disunity.
Mm, say that again. Come on.
There has to be unity within your team. And so I'm really, really put a heavy focus on character
It's good.
when I'm looking at someone. I get a little latitude with volunteers because volunteers are coming to church. Hopefully, they're growing. We're discipling them.
Mhm.
But doing that with a volunteer is different than doing it with a paid employee.
Come
Yeah.
on.
So those are kind of things that I lean heavy on, the character traits. Yes, I make sure you have the skill sets,
Yeah.
but I lean real heavy on the character traits. And I try to give you a question where it's not all sunshine and roses. I want to hear how you've dealt with challenges in all of those areas
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
see if you're a well-rounded person, or are there particular areas that I may need to be aware of and help you grow and develop and come up with a plan for you? Because no one comes into a job knowing everything.
Hmm.
But it helps as the hiring manager if you have a general understanding of who you're hiring,
Right.
not just what school you matriculated from.
Yeah.
So that's my
I love it. Yes. Yes.
mindset.
Amen. Yes and amen.
That's good. For me, I have a very simple acronym that I like to go by to assess whether I think someone is ready for hiring. It's more so for hiring paid employees than volunteers. Some of
Mhm.
them work for both, but mostly for hiring. And the acronym is FAITH. And so the F is for faithful. Like, have you been coming to the church? Have you been in your word? Like, can I tell that you have fruit of the spirit is displayed in your life, right?
Come on.
That's the
Yeah.
basis of everything. The second one is available, because although you have that great character, are you available to do this job? Are you available to meet the time requirements? Are you available to come to the meetings? And are you willing to? The third one is involved. Do you just come on Sundays and then leave, or Do you come early and help out? You know, do you come to our extra events? Do you come to the worship nights? Are you involved in a ministry? Is your family involved? Just seeing how dedicated they are to the ministry and how much they feel called to the ministry. And the T is for teachable, because it's hard to have someone on a team who feels like they already know everything, because realistically, they don't. And even if you know a lot in the corporate world, it's completely different at a church.
Mhm.
And so having someone who is teachable and willing to learn, willing to understand the way that we do things. And lastly, but almost most importantly, I would say, is being humble. Not being puffed up in the head and thinking, yeah, you know, I work for the church now and you guys get to serve me, but understanding that as an employee of the church, we are now the biggest servers for the congregation. We're the biggest
Yes.
servers for our ministry leaders. Knowing that, accepting that, and welcoming that in their lifestyle is really important for us. So it's a simple acronym, FAITH. And those are just the little things that we look for in new employees.
Come on. I love it. And I think what hopefully what you hear as you're listening to this podcast is there, for lack of a better term, there's more than one way to skin a cat.
Yeah.
You can hear the variety, but what I want you to hear is a thought out plan of action.
Yeah.
I want you to hear that, hey, there has to be a form, a process, a vetting that goes along. And if you are able to do it in real time, you can begin to look for these things in people before they even become interviewable options.
Yes.
If you begin to function with these mindsets, using the FAITH acronym, asking the difficult questions, even in conversation, hearing more of their story. Man, tell me a time where you really struggled to get something accomplished.
Yeah.
How did you deal with it? Many times within your volunteer environment, you can begin to identify potential hires before they even realize that they are someone who is a potential hire. That way, you're not simply waiting for a position to be filled. You're looking for the character of the person. Because to Pastor Charles's point, I can teach someone to do just about anything.
Mhm.
Do they have the buildable qualities that make a great team member, a great employee? One of the podcasts that I would recommend, and again, not getting any help or endorsements, but the Craig Rochelle Leadership Podcast is a wonderful podcast. And he actually talks about this idea of it's much easier to hire someone than it is to fire them. So make the right hire the first time so that you don't have to come back and redo it. And I think the things that Simone and Pastor Charles shared with us today are great ways to start creating the lens with which to view future hires and the lens with which to view volunteers that you need to pull in closer, that you need to elevate, and that you need to give and empower to do more within the ministry. So one more question as we're closing out the gate to finish our time. Are there any systems or processes that you would recommend to that person trying to get more stabilized in this idea, more focused in being able to realize the potential of team members, whether they be volunteer or paid?
I'll go first. It's a process, not necessarily a system. But it highlights the importance of knowing the strengths and the weaknesses of everyone who's already on the team. It's so important to acknowledge the fact that everybody has weaknesses. And when we don't, people can get insecure and they try to hide them. But when we are able to simply put them at the forefront and say, hey, this is what I'm not good at, or hey, this is something that I'm amazing at, it allows you to see what you need from other people in the team. And so when you know what you already have on your team, then you are able to understand and know, okay, now this is who I need, because Simone isn't good at administration. And so I need someone who is, or Simone is great with the finance thing. So this new person doesn't have to have those qualities. And so simply understanding where your team is and what your team needs is a process that is important to adding someone else to it.
Yeah. I think for me, one of the things that I look for is trying to develop ownership. And I'm speaking more so towards a volunteer now. When I think back about Henry Ford, when you read his biography, he was not an educated man, but he was wildly successful. And that was attributed to, he said he always surrounded himself with people smarter than him. So if you're the smartest person in the room, you might be in the wrong room. So what you want to do with your volunteers, you want input, you want feedback, and even sometimes feedback doesn't feel good, but you would be surprised with the ideas and the excitement that can be generated by volunteers if you get them involved from day one.
Yeah.
Constantly seek feedback from your volunteers, constantly provide ownership opportunities. And what I tell people is you fill in the bound, you draw the, this is how far you can go. These are the decisions that you can make, and watch them create a masterpiece. You would be surprised at what they can do. But if you have to outline every single step, 1, 2, 3, and nothing gets done without coming through you, you create a chokehold, a choke point, and nothing gets done. And people with a lot of talents, they're not going to express them. So you're missing out. So set the boundaries and watch your people run. You'll be surprised at the results you get.
Yeah, so good. I think on both accounts, if you become someone who has to manage all of the details, you're setting yourself up and your ministry up for you to be the next choke point, you to be the next stopgap in ministry. And if you aren't working with the eyes to see the chemistry of your team, every time you add a person to your team, you are changing the recipe. Make sure you're actually creating something that will continue to build the team. So knowing your team, knowing how they function. Another resource that I would recommend if you haven't had a chance to do it, we take our team here through something called Work Genius. It's a great tool that allows you to assess how people get things done, less about their personality traits and more about how they work within a project. Where are you going to get the best from them in a project? Do they generate ideas? Are they people who finish and complete ideas? Are they folks who are able to discern the challenges and the weak points in something? Are they someone who goes, hey, I just love being in the room and supporting everyone else? So it's a great tool to kind of figure out which seat on the bus your team needs to be on in order to do that. So I'll link all the things that we've referenced throughout the podcast will be linked in our in the description for it. But we're at our time, and I just want to take a quick minute. Hopefully something inspired you all today. Again, reminding you that if you had questions about the podcast for today, please post them on our Facebook page. We can answer them there. And if it's specifically for Simone or for Charles, I usually can get a hold of them if they're not buried in 101 problems, and can get the question to them, get answers for you. Again, this is meant to be a resource for you so that you can learn and grow in your ability to lead within your environment. So please always remember that your amount of resources don't speak for you, but how you use them says everything.
Right.
Every day, with the right tools, you can do the impossible. You can do the impossible with less. So don't look at the bank account, man. Look at our Lord and Savior. Look at the power that He gives, and realize that you have everything you need to do this well. And it's simply growing in the understanding of how to use those tools. So please share, please allow us to get this tool out to as many people as we can, so that we can see more of our churches across the country winning when it comes to church ministry.
Amen.